What if the most important event in modern history never happened? What if the guillotines never fell, the Bastille was never stormed, and the name Napoleon Bonaparte was just a footnote in a dusty military ledger? Let's travel back to the late 18th century, but in a world where the French Revolution is averted. Imagine this, it's 1788. France is teetering on the brink of collapse, crushed by debt and popular anger. But instead of summoning the disastrous Estates General, King Louis XVI, perhaps wiser and better advised, implements a series of sweeping, Enlightenment-inspired reforms from the top down. He creates a form of constitutional monarchy, easing the tax burden on the common people and sharing power with a reformed aristocracy. France stabilizes, the reign of terror never washes Paris in blood, and a certain ambitious Corsican general never gets his chance to conquer Europe. What does this world look like? The most immediate impact is the absence of the Napoleonic Wars. These conflicts were a crucible, forging the modern world. They spread revolutionary ideas, shattered ancient empires like the Holy Roman Empire, and forced nations to modernize their armies and states. Without them, the great absolute monarchies of Austria, Prussia, and Russia remain unchallenged. The old order of kings and nobles holds firm. Liberal democracy and the fiery spirit of nationalism, which Napoleon both ignited and fought, remain dormant, philosophical dreams rather than political movements. Think about Germany and Italy. Their unification was massively accelerated by Napoleon's campaigns, which dissolved countless tiny states and sowed the seeds of a shared national identity. Without that catalyst, Central Europe remains a fragmented patchwork of principalities and kingdoms for perhaps another century. The map of Europe would look far more medieval for far longer. And what of France itself? Without the chaos of revolution and the immense cost of 2 decades of continent-spanning warfare, France would likely remain the undisputed dominant power on the European mainland. Financially stable and politically cohesive under its reformed monarchy, it would continue its global rivalry with Great Britain. The central conflict of the 19th century wouldn't be about democracy versus autocracy, but the familiar, age-old power struggle between the French Bourbons, the Austrian Habsburgs, and the British Hanoverians. Change, in this world, would be glacial. Reforms like the abolition of serfdom, which were often reactions to the specter of revolution, would be significantly delayed. Political power would remain tied to land ownership and noble birth, not talent or popular will. The very idea that a commoner could rise to the highest levels of power would seem like a fantasy. The social ladder would be missing most of its rungs. The Industrial Revolution, already underway in Britain, would continue, but its spread and character would be different. The French Revolution and the subsequent wars created an urgent need for technological innovation, especially in the military. It was this pressure that drove the development of mass conscription, large-scale logistics, and the industrial production of weapons. Without this total war environment, military technology would evolve slowly. Armies would remain small, professional forces, and the concept of mobilizing an entire nation for war wouldn't take hold. Even something as simple as the metric system would be a casualty. The revolution's passion for rationality led to the creation and spread of standardized weights and measures. Without that revolutionary push, Europe would remain a confusing mess of different systems, a major headache for science, trade, and industry. But it's not all stagnation. France, under a stable, reformed monarchy, might have seen its scientific golden age continue unabated. Institutions like the École Polytechnique, which fostered a generation of brilliant scientists, could have pushed France to the forefront of theoretical physics and engineering, making it a true scientific rival to industrial Britain. Culturally, however, the world would be less vibrant. The revolution was a social earthquake. It shattered the old order, and from the rubble, new art forms like neoclassicism and romanticism emerged, focused on the individual, emotion, and grand ideals. Without it, European culture might have remained locked in the ornate, court-driven styles of the Baroque and Rococo periods. The very idea of the citizen, a person with inalienable rights and a stake in the nation, would be lost. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen would never be written. People would remain subjects of a king, not citizens of a country. This extends to the fight for equality. The early push for women's rights, championed by figures like Olympe de Gouges, was a direct product of the revolution's radical for its time call for universal rights. Without that ideological spark, the feminist movement would be set back by decades, if not more. The ripples of this non-event would be felt across the entire globe. One of the revolution's most profound acts was its abolition of slavery in the French Empire. This, in turn, directly inspired the Haitian Revolution, the only successful slave revolt in history that led to an independent nation. Without the French Revolution, the brutal sugar plantations of the Caribbean would continue to operate for much longer, and the global abolitionist movement would lose one of its most powerful moral and practical victories. Latin America's fate would also be rewritten. Napoleon's invasion of Spain created a power vacuum that allowed independence movements from Mexico to Argentina to flourish. Without that invasion, Spain's colonial empire would remain intact, and the birth of modern Latin American nations could be delayed well into the 20th century. And what about the United States? America was a major beneficiary of France's revolutionary turmoil. It was Napoleon, desperate for cash to fund his wars, who sold the Louisiana Territory to the young republic, doubling its size overnight. In our alternate timeline, a powerful and stable France would have kept its vast North American territories. The United States would be penned in, its westward expansion blocked, its manifest destiny forever challenged by a formidable French presence on the Mississippi River. The French Revolution, for all its bloodshed, was the ideological furnace that forged the modern era. Without it, the world would be a very different place, a world of enduring empires, slow-moving reform, and a social order that looks more like the 18th century than the 21st. It leaves us with a difficult question. Was the violence of 1789 a necessary evil to break the chains of the old regime and build the world we know today? Or could the ideals of the Enlightenment have triumphed peacefully, given enough time? So, in this alternate timeline, what nation do you think would be the world's greatest power by 1950? A stable French Empire, a dominant Great Britain, or a completely different contender? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into a world that never was, please give this video a like, subscribe for more What If history, and share this with anyone who loves to ponder the great turning points of the past. Thanks for watching.